Hello, I'm Kimberley Dondo, Digital Content Manager, and welcome to In Conversation With, the podcast series that delves into the world of financial services and brings you face to face with some of the most notable figures in the industry. Listen as we discuss topics that are currently facing the industry and hear from visionary CEOs to disruptive innovators as we bring you a diverse array of voices and perspectives. We'll explore the challenges they faced, the lessons they've learned, and the insights they have to share about the ever-evolving landscape of financial services. Hello and welcome to In Conversation With. I'm Kimberley Dondo, and in today's episode, I'm joined by Rohit and Amal from Saturn AI. Thank you for joining me.
It's a pleasure, Kimberley.
So if you could both give me an introduction into yourselves and how you got started with your company.
Yeah, so I'm Amal, one of the three co-founders of Saturn. So my background came from initially starting out in wealth management, but doing the tech side, being the tech guy, and then moving on to banks, doing the same thing, but building large tech systems that dealt with a lot to do with data, a lot to do with admin. And then when AI and large language models came aboard, saw the immense opportunity in automating the admin part. And a lot of and leaving time for the more important things and the more enjoyable things. So looked at wealth management and saw the opportunity here. Met Rohit with a similar background. Rohit?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Rohit, one of the other co-founders of Saturn. And slightly different to Amal, I came very much from a finance background. So when I graduated uni, I joined BNY Mellon, spent almost 5 years at BNY Mellon on the investment side. Also worked on some interesting projects internally that were more kind of business and growth related, but very much not in the tech sphere. But after spending that amount of time there, I understood that actually financial services is costly and inefficient. And one of the big reasons behind that is the tech that they use. And so having looked at advice for a while, and I've got a personal story kind of with advice and the benefits of advice, realized that actually the advisors are not the ones who are the problem, it's the tech providers. And then when I met Amal, he also kind of shared a similar experience or shared similar insights from his experience around tech and inefficiency. And that's what led us to get started with Saturn.
Okay, so can you explain to me what Saturn is in a nutshell? And what sets it apart from traditional back office systems?
Yeah, what Saturn is, currently it is a system that sits on top of your data and that allows you to pull in information from different sources. So Saturn currently is known for the meeting notes side of things. So we sit on top of Teams. If you have in-person meetings, we have an app where discreetly you can collect insights and notes. And we take all of that information, combine that with back office information to give you very detailed notes, insights about the clients around their vulnerabilities, the advice opportunities. And then when this data is ready to be transferred to or handed off to a paraplanner or an admin person, it's very easy handoff. And we do the same for compliance as well. So what Saturn does in summary is we sit on top of the data that you have, the data that you interact with your customer, and then we help automate and reduce the admin that's related to the firm.
Okay. So talking a little bit more about that compliance, how does Saturn help advisors specifically with operations and AI and compliance? Sorry.
Yeah. So if you look at the data that the advisors interact with, when advisors interact with clients or when they onboard the clients or when they do annual review, you're dealing with data like fact find, the information that they collect from the meetings regarding their needs, goals, etc. They do some calculations on cash flow. So there are these information that the advisor and client exchange, and then that information is passed on to the admin person or the power planner person to do some operations. So that involves admin person on a yearly basis might collect new information to keep the fund updated, or the power planner person basically writes the suitability letter or ensures the right advice and the right product is recommended. And the compliance person sees the same data that is seen by power planners and the admin person, but sees from a different hat of risk. They want to ensure the advisors are supported with the right policies, the right support. So they jump in and do file checks. They jump in and help new CAS advisors with doing observations. They ensure the new regulations are translated to the advisors with new training and whatnot. What Saturn does in all of this is gives a system that allows you to do all of this admin work without double keying, the pain of moving the data from one place to another, emailing someone 3 to 4 times, waiting 3 weeks to do a compliance file check. We reduce all of that pain into a matter of minutes or days.
Okay, that's great. And Rohit, I wonder from your perspective, when you were developing AI, what your background coming from working in financial services kind of served in what you thought was important for when you were building this?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I think my answer is probably split into two. One is like the user pain. And so Amal has an experience within the user pain, and kind of I have a tacit experience, having spoken to a lot of advisors in the past about their experience with tech. And the other is data. So from an experience perspective, the existing tools are quite clunky and difficult to use. Like you have to manually input a lot of information, which actually, if you had the right integrations and if you had kind of a deeper understanding of the user pain, you wouldn't have that manual entry of data. You would pick it up from another system and the advisor would check it rather than having to manually enter it, which does increase the rate of error. The second thing is around data and actually what the data means. So that's much more where my background was helpful, i.e., what does an advisor need to collect from a client to ensure that the product they're recommending is the right product? Because I was sat on the product side, we would see kind of when we were doing our value for money processes, like how advisors were thinking about investing in products or picking products. And I could then translate that thought process into a framework that's helpful for how we think about data and how we want to serve that data to advisors. And so that's been really helpful. And I spent the last 3 years in tech, like building other products, very, very different to financial services. And so kind of joining all the dots together, looking backwards, like I think it's very important to just, like everyone wants simplicity. The reason people choose Apple or pick up an iPhone versus other systems is because it's simple. But for some reason, when we come into work, we expect that the system is going to look like it's been transported from the 1980s. And to me, that seems counterintuitive. And so building a system that's actually designed for the 21st century, bringing wealth managers and IFAs into the 21st century when it comes to tech, and then working with them to move it forward is kind of how, like, principally we think about building products.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Amal, I think you kind of talked us a little bit through how Saturn is used, but could you give us another real world example of how it is used in like everyday tasks or processes to automate and what impact that has on an advisor's life, basically?
Yeah, so I'll take that one, but
okay.
When it comes to kind of the everyday use of Saturn, it is super simple. Like you just pick up your mobile phone, you're going to a client's meeting, you just hit the record button. Then everything from there is automated, i.e. the fact find if it's an onboarding meeting, the kind of notes for the power planner if it's a face-to-face meeting. Along with that, Amal and I have spent a long time with our engineers and product team thinking about what that meeting is then used for. So there's two angles. One is compliance, which Amal can talk much more about. The other is the kind of more like operational side of things, which is the review process or the onboarding process. We're not quite there when it comes to the onboarding process, but we think there's a big opportunity in helping firms onboard new clients. The other is the review process. The review process is incredibly time consuming today, both in terms of preparation and in terms of then the post-review meetings, like sending out communications to clients. Often that can cause a huge backlog within firms. And we're talking about like a firm that comes to my mind used to have a 4-week backlog for just acknowledging that a client has had a review meeting and that their objectives have not changed. And so what Saturn does is automate that process and ensure that it's done within 10 to 15 minutes of time. And whilst they might not do it immediately, 10 to 15 minutes tomorrow is much better than 4 weeks and spending an hour or 2 hours.
And the main issue around all of this is data, because creating a template out of annual review letter does only take 15 to 20 minutes, but the around actually going to different sources, collecting that information, putting that together, making sense, verifying it with another person. This is something that's painful for even people who are doing admin or power planning or advice. All of this amount of time just increases the cost of advice, which basically puts away a lot of people who want to access advisors, but the cost is just like stopping them from doing it. And the inverse as well. Advisors want to serve a lot more people. They want to be helpful. They want to talk to a lot of people and serve their needs, but they're not able to because the ratio between the advisors and the admin staff is so high, and the cost to serve each person is so high because of all of this data. What Saturn does and aims to do in the future as well, bring all of this data together to create that single source of truth so that you can start to do work much faster.
Mm-hmm. I like that, single source of truth. We talked a little bit earlier about how I wonder about AI and how it works in terms of regulation. So could you walk me through that? How does Saturn handle regulatory requirements, and what level of confidence can advisors have in its accuracy?
Yeah, we take two things very seriously. One is the privacy and data. Second is accuracy. AI systems right now, Kimberley, before we started this, you talked about generic AI tools and the accuracy around it. Mm-hmm. It's not very accurate to a level of a human yet. That's why the way we look at all of this is we are very realistic in what the AI's impact is going to be, and we create systems around it to help you save a lot of time, save you a lot of money, and make your work more enjoyable. So answering directly the question, how do we improve and ensure the regulatory side of things is up to date and the accuracy up to date? Is so my background comes from regulatory tech, so I understand regulations to a certain extent, but to go one level higher and like one level deeper, we started hiring expert power planners. We started hiring expert compliance people inside to rate and build our AI systems. Our accuracy started shooting up the roof, where our systems that we built start to kind of predict things much better. The accuracy was much better compared to the other peers in the industry. So we have this human in the loop, expert in the loop process where it reduces the chance that that an inaccurate information is pushed out. And also the expert in the loop process ensures the AI is trained and updated with the latest regulations, and it always pushes out the right thing.
Yeah.
Just to add on to that, we're actually in the FCA's office right now.
Amazing.
As the only kind of wealth tech company that was in their innovation pathways. So today we're presenting some of the tools that we've built, which is quite exciting for us. And also, like, during that process, not to delve into it too much, but we were able to interact with SMEs within the FCA to understand what are they looking for from firms and from tech providers alike, because obviously our clients are the firms, and we can then transfer that knowledge from the FCA into our firms in a much more practical and talk about it, not just from how we build product, but also kind of what the FCA are expecting of their firm.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because I think I've been wondering is how closely are a lot of firms who are building AI specifically in the financial advice space, working with the FCA, but seems that it's happening, so that's good. No rogue cowboys out there. I'm sure there are, but you guys have covered your bases. But another crucial aspect is data security. Obviously, there's so much cybercrime rampant at the moment. I have to say, even the amount of phishing emails I've been getting is crazy. So what measures has Saturn put in place to protect client information?
We take data very, 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 very seriously, to a level where we spend a good amount of budget every year to ensure the best standards are applied to our technical processes, how we deal with data. Our data is always stored in the UK, in London. Our AI processing happens in the UK, follows strict GDPR regulation. We are going through SOC 2 process as well, which is more strict and which has much higher standards. Internally, we never train our systems on clients' data. We have a very systematic method of using synthetic version, so a lookalike version of how a data of a client looks like, and then we start to train our systems on that. And we have our experts in the loop. So we have our SMEs inside to replicate how a client looks like, then start to train the system on that. So this goes to say that the level of privacy and security that we follow at Saturn is on par with the best in the industry, the like of Apple, the like of AWS, etc. The way we continue to focus on this, the reason we focus on this is because AI systems are continuously gonna get better, but the issue around excitement around AI leads advisors and all the other people to just go and try this out. And we want to be the first touch point where they can use these best of class AI systems. We spend a lot of time in the last couple of months in San Francisco. We have much closer relationships to a lot of the cutting edge AI companies, where we get much more faster access to their models. So we do things in such a way that we want to, and we will always give the best and most secure things to our advisors.
So in that time in San Francisco, I just wonder what inspiration you got when you were out there. Was there a lot that you saw that you're like, we can implement this, we can take this, we can collaborate with this company?
Yeah, I think so. There's kind of a few different ways that's fed back into what we do at Saturn. I guess like our inspiration, looking at founders who've been through that journey, who've been very successful, it is inspiring. And you kind of vibe that energy, you take that in, and whether it's conscious or subconscious, like you start to feel like you can do things that previously maybe you wouldn't have felt you were capable of. So that's one thing. And then the second thing I think is talent. So being around great engineers and people who think very strategically about how AI is going to play out, not just the next year, but actually the next 3 to 5 years, and the impact that's going to have both positive and negative on the economy and on specific sectors and things like that. That's also been very helpful for us to be able to go into, help understand, because obviously these are just predictions. My prediction is as good as anyone else's, but hearing the reasoning behind that is really interesting and helps us learn a lot. And then the final thing is actually bringing back some of that knowledge into our community. So Saturn actually operates a community specifically for firms who are signed up to use Saturn for long term. And what we do is basically share that knowledge with our community so that they not only feel like they're getting a good product from Saturn, but they're also getting kind of industry knowledge about AI. Like I sense when I speak to advisors, and I'm sure Amal shares the same thing, there's a lot of appetite to be kind of an AI thought leader without the resources to be able to do that. We want to empower our advisors to be the thought leaders of the industry around AI and what technologies are coming, what products we're specifically working on with those technologies, but also separately, kind of what technologies can they leverage to help their clients that Saturn maybe isn't going to develop, but they could use them themselves. So There's three different ways. I think that experience in San Francisco was incredibly helpful for us as a team and helpful for our clients as well.
Yeah. And I want to look to the future now. So where do you guys see yourselves and your company in the next few years? Are there any new developments on the horizon or features that financial advisors should look forward to?
The things at Saturn is very exciting. So the things that we are building behind the scenes, we haven't released yet. But what I can say is it's mostly to do with the admin part, taking care of all the mundane tasks that the advisors right now. I heard from one of the advisors that 60% of his time is spent in doing this admin part, and that is less time spent with clients.
Yeah.
Then I hear from larger firms that the ratio between the advisor and the admin staff is so high that they end up spending a lot of their resources on that. And the service that firm ends up offering to customers is pretty much costly. Mm-hmm. So for us, is if you think about the entire back office process, and how the data interacts with that, and the systems that the firms put in to ensure the delivery of services there, Saturn is pretty much going to touch it and try to automate it for you. And we are starting with meeting notes. We moved on to annual review letters, and now we are doing compliance file checks, which is going to be our next big release. And post that, we're going to be focused on automating specific parts of the workflows that touch admin people, the compliance people, and power planners.
Okay, awesome. Great things to look forward to. And lastly, what advice would you give to advisors considering AI solutions? And specifically, I want you guys to talk to the skeptics. I had a panel recently in Leeds, and one of the advisors on there was very skeptical. He loves technology. He's not like a tech hater, but he just doesn't know how it will benefit him in his work.
I think it's a great question. I actually applaud the skeptics because there's a lot of hype. And oftentimes when you have hype and you have skepticisms, the reality is somewhere in between.
Yeah.
What we would say, and like this is what we've seen from like Saturn now works with over 200 advice firms across the UK. Like the best practice or the best approach we've seen to AI is start with one use case. Actually identify in your business where you see the biggest pain point. We saw, and a lot of firms that we work with see this kind of one, the information captured in a meeting and then transferring that information into the team being like a very kind of core pain point that they have, i.e. information doesn't get transferred very efficiently. And also it's not efficient for advisors to spend time in meetings with power planners and admin staff when actually they should be going out and seeing their clients. So that's start with one use case and actually see today what is the time it takes you to do that. And then in the test, measure how much time it takes you with the new piece of technology. And then you can look to expand. I think the skeptics are in some way correct. As Amal mentioned before, the generic AI tools are inaccurate. And what it takes to work with a specialist provider is our systems are from day one going to be much more accurate. And our focus is going to be on the accuracy and improving that accuracy. And so I can understand the skeptics, but I would say if you have one use case that you think there's a huge problem that costs you a lot of time and almost means that you can take on more clients, I would try and solve for that use case initially, and then I would look to expand. I wouldn't get intoxicated or hyped up by people saying they can do the whole thing. Because right now, it's definitely, like from our experience, not possible today. But that's the kind of future we're working towards, and it takes patience, collaboration, and trust to be able to get there. And so that's kind of what my advice would be. I don't know if you've got anything on that. Sure.
No, I completely agree with you. I think starting with one use case and seeing it for yourself, measuring the results, is going to allow you to ground yourself to reality. And then over time, continuously being open to the new technologies and testing on that use case or different use case allows you to understand, hey, this is what is possible. And if it is possible and it's reducing your cost a lot, which allows more customers to access your service, it's reducing the pain that you spend on a screen doing boring things. if all of this is happening with AI, then you'll slowly move from being a skeptic to being an enabler in this industry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, I can't wait to see where this goes, and I can't wait to see where you guys go. Hopefully, we'll be able to check in and see what new features you have brought out. But thank you so much for speaking with me today. This is a really great conversation.
Thanks so much for your time, Kimberley.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to In Conversation With. We do hope that you enjoyed it. Please do keep up to date with all our new releases via Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts from. You can also keep up to date with all our new content published on the Money Marketing website, as well as our print edition Money Marketing magazine. So make sure to subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next time.